Welcome to We Are Something Else presents Smoking Spill. I'm your boy Kaleo. There's my man Big Mike. Mike, how's it going, brother?
Oh man, it's going great tonight, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite, man.
Man, look,
Smoking
we've been
Spill,
trying to
man.
do this, trying to get this together forever, and we finally got it to work. I'm
Small
excited.
guy.
We got a lot in store for everybody. This is just the first episode. We're gonna try to work through it and make things happen. But let's start. Wait, I see you
Let's do
smoking
it.
on some hookah over there.
Oh yeah, man. Smoking on that hookah tonight, man. Got
What
the
flavor you working with?
oh man, got the spice chai tonight, man.
Ooh,
Mari. I tend to roll with the 100 gram. I mean, I'm open to like the larger product, but I get tired of flavors relatively quick, so I'll do the smaller amount, to kind of like test the waters and see, just see what's out there, and not feel like I have to smoke like a whole 1,000 gram, thing of shisha, So yeah, 100 grams is where it's at.
nice. I too am also smoking on Fumari. I got
Mhm.
that blueberry muffin, the last of my blueberry muffin. So
All
I'm a little
right.
upset about because that's one of my favorite flavors. Is kind of you've smoked that one before, right?
Actually, I have it. I haven't smoked it yet. So that's actually next in the rotation. So as soon as yeah, probably tomorrow, I'll probably open that one up and see what that's like. But hey, if you
Super
like it,
light.
I probably end up liking it as well.
Oh yeah, nah. Fumari has they've mastered, I think, like those flavors. If they tell you it's blueberry muffin, it's blueberry muffin. If they tell you it's like tropical mango, it's tropical mango, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, one of my favorite outside of Fumari is Trifecta. I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago. I told you about that. If you haven't tried Trifecta yet, it's one of the better ones. A little more expensive, but it comes in like a almost like a peanut butter jar, and so you get a lot. But yeah,
Right.
if
I
you get a
actually
chance,
have
check
some coming tomorrow, man. I have
some.
it's like you said, it's like a peanut butter jar. I think they come in about 250 grams. So, I mean, I'm excited to
Yep.
test it out tomorrow. Well, maybe tomorrow if I don't throw the blueberry in. But it's got I already forgot what flavor I ordered, but
Nice.
it'll be here tomorrow, man. I'll definitely let you know, man.
And typically, I like I normally put ice in my hookah to give it a calming flavor, a little
Right.
cooler flavor, I should say. But I got the little boy, the short boy tonight, so no ice fit in there. Do you ever do the ice with ice hose?
Yeah, actually, man, I have ice in mine right now, and I mean, I switch it up from time to time, man. Sometimes I just go with water. Sometimes instead of ice, man, I'll actually put Sprite inside the base. Sprite,
Nice.
and that I usually throw the Sprite in whenever I have like a minty flavor. It,
Hmm.
it kind of gives that extra effect to it.
I've heard
But
people do wine before too. One of my boys does wine.
man, I've never done wine, man.
Me
I'm open to it, man. Especially with these these newer type silicone hoses, it's a little bit easier to clean.
yeah,
So I'll definitely be open to try something like wine or
absolutely.
anything else that's out there.
Right. Okay. So look, the reason why we're here is because you and I we've known each other forever. We go all the way back to BJ's Wholesale Club, where we used to talk NERD and music, and I think movies was in there too. But like lately, I've been wanting to just chat it up, talk it up with somebody about movies and music, and we were able to make this happen. So tonight,
Tonight's the night, man. This is it, man.
exactly.
Oh yeah. This is it, man. Like you said, man, we go way back. So hey, man, I'm definitely excited to chop it up, man, with some movies and
Yep,
movies and hookah, man. Can't really beat that.
let's do it. And I figured that there's a lot of movies that people may have overlooked. Back in those blockbuster days when we used to go on a Friday night, Saturday night, and hit that wall. A lot of people don't know about the wall. It was a good night when you walked in a blockbuster when new movies were released, and you look behind the cover and there was like 4 or 5 copies of each.
Right.
Um, and I was thinking I want to take it back to those days. Like nowadays everything happens so fast. We get, on Netflix they drop series right away. You can binge. Everything's all about the binge or quick materials. And a lot of these older movies or older albums get overlooked or people, they don't talk about them anymore. And so tonight, you and I, we've done our homework and we're going to talk about a classic. To me, I thought it was a classic. We're going to talk about Kid and Play's Class Act. Now, what is Class Act? Let's start with the plot, right?
Right.
It's a simple plot. So if you ever want to watch it, it's not too deep to get into. It's lighthearted. But the people who don't know who Kid and Play were, they kind of ruled the late 80s, early 90s with their movies and some of their music. They came into the game with Salt and Pepper, and Herbie was their producer as well. So they've been around for a while. And Martin was part of that crew too. But Class Act came out in 1992. And the simple plot is it's about a valedictorian and like a youth thug kind of thing. You know, somebody who's in a detention center, in and out of detention centers. They switch identities by accident. Just by a simple twist of a bump on paperwork from a principal or secretary, the paper pictures switched from one profile to the other. And let's start with that. So the two characters, Blade Brown, played by Play, who is the thuggier, the troubled youth, and Kid plays Duncan Pinderhughes. By that name alone, you can kind of tell what kind of person his character is. It's directed by Randall Miller. Randall Miller also he did House Guest, and he did another famous movie, Six Man.
Mm-hmm.
So two classics also. Let's go through the cast of this movie. So we got Christopher Reed, who's Kid, Christopher Martin, who's Play, some other notables, Meshack Taylor. Now, people don't know who Meshack Taylor is. Do your homework. If you are a fan of Mannequin, he was Hollywood. Or Designing Women, he was Anthony.
Yep. Yeah, he was also, I don't know if you remember like the old like Damien and Omen movies. I think he was in like the second one, man. And
really?
Yeah, man. He kind of like a minor role, man. And spoiler alert, man, his body gets decapitated by like this elevator that crashes on top of him, man. So like, I don't know, man. If you want to, go back and watch that movie. Man,
and I've seen, you know what? I need to go back and pay attention because I've seen a lot of those movies. Maybe I missed that one. A young Loretta Devine. If you don't know who Loretta Devine is, she is everybody's mama in black movies. Her and the other famous one I'm forgetting right now. It'll come to me, and I had it in my notes. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, man, Loretta Devine, man. Yeah, she's in every black
Jennifer
movie.
Jones.
Yeah, so. Yeah. But yeah, Loretta Devine, man, she's definitely one of my favorite actresses, man. She's actually currently in P Valley. If you watch P Valley, she's in there, plays a grandma in that movie, but in that TV show. But yeah, she's really good, man.
Then we have some other notables. We got Rhea Perlman.
Mm-hmm.
She's been in Cheers. Also married to Danny DeVito at one point. Doug. Cool Runnings. He was in the second version of the Cosby Show. It was just called Cosby. Right. Karen Parsons, who was hot at the time with Fresh Prince. You don't know Karen Parsons. She played Hillary on Fresh Prince. I think this was her movie debut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we had Reginald Ballard, also known as Brother Man from the Fifth Floor.
Yep.
Then we had Thomas McKell Ford, also a cast member of Martin, who played Tommy Strong, Martin's best friend.
Right.
Alicia Rogers, she's only had two roles. The other role was Ricky's wife in Boys in the Hood. And then after this movie, she quit acting to raise her kid. And I think she kind of resurfaced in 2000, but not the same. Like she was on Boys in the Hood was a catapult for a lot of those actors.
Oh yeah.
From Ice Cube, Cuba Gooding Jr., Morris Chestnut, and she was a star in that movie. And after this one, and after Class Act, she kind of disappeared for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all the kind of notables. There are other folks in this movie in and out of that you may recognize, but those are the notables. So we watched the movie. First thought. Like, did you watch this back in 91 or when that, like around the time that it came out, or maybe that it surfaced on cable? Had you watched it back then?
Actually, yeah. I watched this movie as a kid, man. Probably, in hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have watched it when I was so young, But I definitely remember my parents, or my mom or my dad, just renting this from Blockbuster, man, and watching this probably like a million times, man. And then when it hit cable, watched it another million times on like HBO
Yeah.
and Showtime and stuff. So, this movie is kind of like a staple of my childhood, man. It kind of it's kind of like one of those 90s movies that kind of just explains it all, man. So
Yep. I
so
think,
it was fun going back and watching it as an adult.
yeah, and it's one of those ones where, like, when you see it on TV, I got to stop to kind of watch it because you don't know when it's going to show again. And it's been a while, like, since it had been on any kind of channels, and all of a sudden it just started popping up
Mhm.
again.
Right.
And it was on Netflix for a while, and I had to say this is my favorites. Then it just disappeared. But
Mhm.
it's in my Amazon queue for the DVD, which is like $10. So it's one of the ones that you just got to add to the collection.
Right. Right.
Now, as like you said, as a kid, I watched it. It's definitely one of those ones where it's a little more lighthearted than House Party. I think House Party had the R rating.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely,
Yeah, and
man.
this one, I believe had the PG-13 rating,
uh,
or maybe just PG, but it was a little more lighthearted because they were high school kids. And I realized watching this movie, it deals with a lot of like things that go on in high school today. You've got the good girl who chooses the bad guy. How many? How's that still happens in today's society? Girls chase after bad guys all the time. It deals with bullying for sure.
right.
Um, and it deals with, I think, almost, and I don't want to use the word segregation, but lightly. I want to use it lightly because it had two versions of the school. You had the A wing where all the studious kids were at that were going to get an education. Then you kind of had like the B wing where it was just total chaos, and they kept all the kids that wasn't going to learn, wasn't about school. It's total, the disrespectful ones. They kept them in another wing, and we still kind of see that. Back when I was in school a long time ago, you kind of saw that too because you kind of had your honors classes, your
Mhm.
AP class, and like they just try to separate a lot of the ones who were doing the work weren't doing work.
Right. Right.
Um,
Definitely noticed that as well, man. And we'll probably go into it later when it comes to like to the ratings, but there were certain things in certain parts of the movie that actually ended up affecting like my overall rating of the
yep,
movie. In hindsight, going back and seeing like like the segregated parts, and then in the classroom, you'll notice that I guess in Blade Brown's classroom, I don't know if you noticed it, man, but a lot of the characters in like the remedial classroom, they were dark skinned, man, and then when you looked at the honors course,
absolutely,
it was like light skin or white. What are they trying to say? You know what I'm saying?
exactly,
Yeah, so
exactly.
I
So maybe segregation
definitely
was a
noticed
good
that,
word.
man. Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but
So
overall, I
let's
mean, it's so funny, but that definitely plays into my overall, you know.
absolutely. So let's dive in a little bit. I'm gonna give a kind of story tell a little bit. So we said it was about two kids from the opposite side of the tracks whose identities get switched up. And what happens from there is they quickly learn that they're in the wrong situation. And Blade, again, being the juvenile delinquent, he needs help with his grades and he needs to pass, or else he's going back to jail, right? He's going to be back in
Right.
juvenile detention, and he needs help. And Duncan, being the studious guy he is, Blade knows Duncan can help him succeed. Now,
Hmm.
vice versa, I don't know how that's going to work out for Duncan, who is on his way to like Ivy League schools, and Blade is not quite the studious guy. But Duncan's shortcomings is he's not an athlete. So he's succeeding everywhere else except gym, right?
Right. Right.
So, and then from there, like you have to, so they have to buy into, for first of all, Blade is all for it, Duncan is not, right? That's just how it's going to go. Duncan wants to be Duncan. He doesn't want to be Blade. Blade is
Hmm.
like, no. And here's where some of the bullying comes in. Like he does some things to kind of force his hand
Oh yeah. Oh
to
yeah.
make
Yeah.
him be to portray him, right?
Oh yeah. He definitely
So
let it know that he was not trying to go back to being Blake Brown, man. As long as he had any control over it.
exactly. And so here, like then, as typical, every movie has a love interest, right? So this is where the women come into play. So Blade goes into these high advanced course classes that he has to be Duncan, and Karen Parsons is the love interest. She does, mind you, nobody knows what these two look like, which is weird because they're both seniors at this point, and she believes that Blade is Duncan. Like, you've never
Right.
seen this guy, like you're enamored by a name, so she's all over him and
Mhm.
just obsessed by his work. So that aspect, and then so you have Duncan, who's in now the bad courses. He goes in there, and Duncan being Blade has a reputation, I'm sorry, of being a badass. And there's a love interest there, Alicia Rogers, Demita. Again, doesn't know what Blade looks like, but knows his reputation, and she's already, again, enamored by his reputation. So
Right.
she goes strongly at him. And so let's stop right there. So we're up to like the plot is developing in the
Mhm.
movie. Has anything stood out to you thus far, or
Yeah. So it hit me immediately that they're kind of both of the love interests are both into like the bad side of each of the characters. Like Demita, she's into Blade's his rap sheet, because I guess word got around, especially from Dougie Doug's character, like, oh man, this guy Blade Brown, man, he's done this, he's done that, and she's immediately drawn to that. And on the other end, I'm gonna call her, I forget her name in the movie, well, Hillary from Fresh Prince, her character,
it's
she's
Ellen?
she's also, yeah, she's right, yeah, she's also immediately drawn into Duncan's character. Well, I guess it would be yeah, Duncan Pinderhughes. She's already immediately just drawn to him, because she sees a little bit of a bad side, although he's known as like this super smart, almost like a prodigy type guy. She's already sensing like a little bad side to him, and she's drawn to that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, immediately, man. I was like, man, okay, I
And
kind of
mind
see.
you, the bad side is because Blade, who's being Duncan, is still being Blade. Like, it's one of those things where you can take the dude out the hood, you can't take the hood out the
Right,
dude.
right,
But
yeah, yeah. Right.
she's just like kind of all over that. And what also
Right.
is weird too is the teacher
The
is
teacher, yeah,
obsessed
yep.
with Duncan
Hmm.
at this point as well.
Yeah. The teacher was all over him, and like you said before, it's kind of weird that neither student is familiar with any of the teachers or anything like that. So I wonder if they were both transfer students from somewhere else, and they just
That
kind
could be
of
that
went to
too.
the school, but they just didn't mention it at the beginning.
Mhm.
So I don't know, but yeah, I definitely noticed that. I was like, man, wait a minute, if they're seniors, how come they don't? None of the classmates know who
Nobody
they
knows.
are? Like,
Nobody knows who the smartest guy
yeah,
potentially in the area is.
right,
So
or the baddest,
right.
in Blade's characters. So yeah, man.
So now we're at the point where we have to make this believable, right? So you have the situation where Blade has to make Duncan Blade, because Duncan is a straight arrow. Like, we're talking about, he even mentions he wears J.C. Penney's top of the line clothing. So
Yeah,
press pants,
man.
press shirt, penny loafers, all that.
Yeah.
Blade is the other kind of, again, streetwear, lots of colors, fashionable. And then, mind you, at the point, this is where Kid in real life still has the high top fade.
Hmm.
And for this movie, like, we see a lot of things that separate them from House Party, where he gets rid of the high top fade for the first time and he goes into twists,
Hmm.
which Blade ends up giving him a new haul of clothes, hair, everything. And with the side note here, the funny part is the first time Blade is introduced to Duncan's parents, it's
Oh,
absolutely rude to them. And
yeah.
the parents think that Blade is a love interest to Duncan.
Yeah. That was hilarious, man. Especially coming from Meshack Taylor, because if you've seen some of
Right.
his previous roles, you're like, wait a minute, man, this is funny in itself.
Exactly.
Because you've seen some
Especially Hollywood.
women and mannequin, you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is funny, man.
So they make it believable, right? They do the role reversal. They switch. Um, Duncan is succeeding with Blade as Blade. He's built, his confidence is built up. He's doing this. He's doing that. And actually, in gym, he goes to gym. He actually becomes, a kicker. He's actually really good at sports, well, football, because of his math. Um, he's knowledgeable, his knowledge in math and his angles and all that geometry kind of thing. And Blade actually starts to succeed as Duncan when it comes to just being who he is. Like, right, this report that he wrote about a car and how he made it turn into, it was what, human anatomy, or it was almost like biology. He turned the car into his car report into a biology report.
Right.
It was interesting. So then kind of the plot here, there's always a bad guy outside of Blade. You had Mink, and then you had, let me see,
Yeah, Mink, you had Wedge.
Wedge. That's what it's, Wedge. Wedge is the high school bully who's probably been there for about 6-7 years. He's definitely a
Right.
grown ass man, right?
Yeah. That's the thing with those
And
90s
he's
movies, man.
automatically,
Yo, wait a minute. That dude was not in high school for real, man. Like, that dude is way older. He's not
exactly,
18, man. He's like 35,
and
man.
trying to get over. And the funny thing is, like, he doesn't know Blade Brown by face, but by, again, reputation. He's already intimidated by Blade coming and stepping on his turf in school, right? And also taking his woman from him, Demeter. So when it comes to him, and then he answers to Mink. Mink is played by Tommy Ford. And all of a sudden, like, ever since Blade shows up to the school, what happens to Wedge? He gets exposed. He gets beat up. Like, everything bad that happens to him, it just happens ever since Blade shows up. And Tommy is like, we're not going to have that. Like, this is, you always have to answer to a higher power. And this guy's like, we're not having that. We're going to pretty much try to take Blade Brown out, right? At this point. My question for you is, so far in the plot, like, how could this movie be redone now to fit nowadays? You know how House Party was redone? Like, could they redo this movie with the bullying aspect, with the tackle on the parents thinking he's gay, the role reversals? Like, is this something that will work nowadays as a movie?
I think it could, man, because a lot of those topics are still kind of relevant today, especially with, like, bullying and just trying to fit in, as like a as a high school student, So I think the role itself could possibly work. I know there's a lot of I guess there's a big there's a PC climate now that you have to kind of watch out for. But I don't know. Like, I think if this movie was remade until 2023 standards, maybe the rating would be a little bit different. But that's about it. But I think it could possibly work.
Yeah, and that's why I asked, because everything nowadays is, you get into the cancel culture, or sensitivity. Like, back then in the 90s, everything was a go, right? And there was no because social media didn't exist. The internet was barely there, so you got away with almost everything. And now there's little that you can get away with. There's a little bit of trivia about this movie that I found out, that this is actually a urban retelling of Mark Twain's Prince and the Pauper.
Yep.
I didn't even know that until I started doing it. It's like, this research is like, that makes sense. It really is.
Yep, I read into that as well, man. It definitely caught me off guard. It's like, oh wow, man, I didn't realize that, it had that type of that type of background towards its creation. But like you said, it makes sense, and I think they did a pretty good job in making it like an urban story, that fit into the 90s culture back then.
Yeah, the plot is getting thick here, and so they're succeeding as the opposite person, right? The girls are in love, or they're falling for him, and what happens next is the Mink character. I told you he's not taking it lightly. A Wedge is getting exposed by Blade. So Mink inserts himself to, I guess at this point, kidnap Blade, right? So he wants to get rid of him. He wants to take him out. And at some point, as always happens, is the girls find out that they're dating the wrong person, and it goes from being in love to typical dumping kind of relationship thing where you obviously don't want nothing to do with these guys. And at this point, the guys are enamored by the girls that like them.
Right.
And the plot, pretty much at this point, is a simplistic plot. It's not really a deep movie. But they have to go in, they have to win their girls back, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking here, so we're at the point where the plot is sticking on the movie, and they're both exposed as being the opposites. The girls aren't happy, and obviously, what are they doing? They're not happy. They part ways with the guys, right? Mm-hmm. And mind you, they weren't really friends to begin with, the two guys. But at this point, they have some kind of working relationship going, which I guess happens when when you spend that much time around somebody. And now Blade needs Duncan to get Ellen back, and Duncan needs Blade to go ahead and get Demeter back.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in the movie, we're almost at the ending of the movie. What notes that you have written down? Is there anything that we haven't kind of gone over, or things that you felt about the movie? Because, like I said, it's a very simplistic plot.
Right. I think as getting towards the end of the movie where the girls kind of realized that they were being lied to. Duncan and Blade, they both had their scenes where they almost told them who they really were, but they held back because I think it just shows like, hey, just kind of shows like I wouldn't say immaturity, but they were still teenagers, so they didn't really know how to put in words what was really going on, and they probably both thought like, hey, now isn't the right time to say like, hey, I'm not really Duncan or I'm not really Blade. And unfortunately, it came out at the scene of the wax museum and stuff, like of who's who and stuff like that, right. And they both got off. The women got upset about that, understandably, because they're like, oh, you're not this guy, you're not that guy. Right. So, but
but they were too far gone to really like switch, like the girls, right. Like she wasn't, she was too far into Duncan, Blade, and she was too far into Duncan for them to want the opposites, right? Right. They probably really just felt just like deceived, as they should.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but once the facts came out, the only thing Duncan or Kid's character, when he was actually portraying Blade, the only thing that really he got rid of was the gold tooth, man. Right. And to me, like, the girl, she's just like that. Oh, he really doesn't have that gold tooth hanging there, man. I mean,
yeah. They literally actually person, so. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. My question, so kind of digging a little deeper outside the movie, just as far as Kid and Play themselves. We've seen the House Party franchise, right? They played Kid, they were Play in those movies. And you kind of feel like, Class Act was a way for them to get rid of those characters, like, because they kind of went completely left field of what they were in House Party, I guess, to get away. Because at that point, they're like typecasted, right? You have Kid and Play in the movie, they're Kid and Play.
Right.
So I think they did a good job trying to get rid of being those House Party characters.
Mm-hmm.
And making it more. I mean, again, it's not a deep movie; it's a comedy, but I think they did a good job portraying other characters and making you believe that it wasn't a House Party movie.
Right.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think a lot of people, especially when the movie came out, they were probably expecting the same kid and play type character, but when they watched Class Act for the first time, they were like, "Oh yeah, they're definitely the roles kind of switched up a bit." Even though Duncan, he does come in with the hair, he looks like kid from House Party, but he's definitely a totally different character.
And I
And
think that was a good thing to do, to totally divorce yourself from Kid,
right,
is the change of the hair.
hmm
Um,
yeah, I definitely agree.
Soundtrack. I did some research on the soundtrack of the movie. Uh, it didn't really. It had a soundtrack, but it wasn't one of those movies where the soundtrack really stood out. It had a
Right,
track called "Class Act" by Kid and Play, and then it was just some other random rappers like on the album, whatever. So it really didn't stand out. So I really can't put too much effort in talking about the soundtrack. It had one, but it wasn't one of those major soundtrack releases.
right.
Um, would I recommend this movie to anyone? Yes, because I think, to me, I'll give it the classic title. Everything, certain things fall under classic, and I'll give it a classic title because it's one of those movies, to me, I think can stand. We're still talking about it from 1992, and it's 2023, and it's still one of the movies I can watch every time it comes on TV. Doesn't get old to me. So I think, when if you put it under that kind of context, I think it would be a classic. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, I've seen this movie 1,000 times myself. From as an elementary school kid all the way up until now, and whenever I see it, man, I definitely tune in. And the soundtrack to me, it like you said, it had a soundtrack, but it didn't really stand out like some of the other movies, especially around that time period.
Right, right.
My favorite song on there though was probably "House Call" by Shabba Ranks. Shabba
Yep, that
Ranks
was in.
featuring Maxi Priest. That one actually hit the radios, and it did quite well back then.
And that
Um,
played when they were in the club, the dance hall.
yep, yeah, it came on in the dance hall, and I think shortly after that, Duncan and Blade, they actually rapped and did their own thing.
Yep.
I get yeah. Some of the other artists in the soundtrack were Moni Love. You had Lord Finesse, and you had the Kid and Play
Hmm.
performance as well. So yeah, man, hey, I was after watching Class Act, man. I've been playing that. I've been playing the Shabba Ring song like pretty
Oh, that's
often, man.
yeah, that's
It's a classic, man.
yeah.
But
Like you
so they
said,
probably went too deep into it, but that one song definitely threw back some memories, man.
that like you said, for that period, that time frame, soundtracks were on point with the movie. Like, sometimes the soundtrack was better than the movie.
Mhm.
And I didn't after I watched the movie, I didn't go back to I didn't I should have listened to the full soundtrack. But you're right. I do remember the Shabba Rank song, and then I forgot that Moni Love was on there as well. But yeah, definitely Kid and Play song, because they rap in the movie as well.
Right.
Um, so if we had to rate it now, since we want to theme it with the hookah and hookah rings, how many rings would you give this movie?
I think I'm gonna give it 4 rings. It's a classic to me. But like I said, what kept it from being like a full 5 to me was the fact that the screenplay was actually by this guy named John Semper, who's black. The movie itself was, like you said, it was directed by Randall Miller, who's white, and I think that having that black screenplay artist contribute to the movie helped it from being totally stereotypical movie written by someone who's not a person of color.
Right,
Like you said, I noticed the difference in the classrooms and stuff like that. I think they could have done a better job to kind of not make it seem like dark skinned people, or they're not worthy enough to be in like AP or honors
right.
courses and stuff like that. So I think if they would have had more input on that part,
Mhm.
it definitely would have. made it more believable to me. Although we all know it's a movie, but
Right.
still, if you're a kid or if you're a teenager watching that, you don't want to make it seem you don't want to get that idea in your head like I'm only supposed to be in like these remedial courses just because I don't look a certain way to fit into like honors, even though obviously how you have the
Absolutely.
green. So yeah, four smoke rings for me.
Yep. So I agree. I'm going to give it 4 rings as well. And my similarity, my reasons, I think again, like simplistic kind of plot. I wasn't expecting anything deep. It wasn't deep enough to get a 5. Um, kind of like you, I feel like there one too many buffoonery characters for me, like the the Dougie Doug character. Like he was kind of the buffoonery sidekick, right? And then the Wedge
Right.
character was like a meathead kind of bully. Granted, again, it's all a movie, and you may be thinking we're overthinking this, but certain things go into movies, and I think watching it now is so you have to realize that we're giving it a rating probably based on how things are now. Because as a kid, if I'm watching this back to back to back as many times I have, it probably would have got to 5 because you don't think about things like that now. So this is probably what's
Right.
interesting about this. The ratings, these are older movies, but we're giving it an eye off of modern times. And so this one, I think, again, is not the perfect. It's not a perfect movie, so it doesn't deserve a 5. But I think the fact that it stood the test of time for me, and I can watch it every time that it comes on, and I got the DVD in the cart. It's at least a 4 because it's not bad. It's not a bad movie. It's actually a funny ass movie.
It is a funny ass movie, man. And, I love the cars in that movie, man. Like
Yeah, the
Blade slash Duncan
lowrider.
rider truck, man. But man, hey man, Wedge driving that Suzuki, man, that was hilarious,
That's
man. Like
that
big dude in that little blue Suzuki at the red light, man. Police car, man. That was hilarious, man.
man. And these kids, they were driving these to school.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
but I
Blade
remember how big lowriders were.
uh, oh man. Yo, that was yeah. That was. If I would have seen one of those, man, that red lowrider was dope, man. I was like, man, that's a cool truck, man.
And the take on that is, again, the movie. So the movie takes place in California as well. That
Right.
that was kind of like the culture out there. Like if you look at Boys in the any movie that was took place out in the L.A. or the West Coast, a lot of them had lowriders in the movie. That was just it was what it was at that time. And yeah, then eventually Blade got the motorcycle. So these were cool kids like in high school with motorcycles,
Oh yeah, man.
lowriders. The Suzuki, what was that, a sidekick?
I have no clue, man.
Or
All I know is,
Suzuki's.
man, that man Wedge, man, he just looks so goofy, man, just being in there, man, and then trying to race like he was going to actually do something
Oh
in
my
that.
god.
Like,
And for him to be a bully, he wasn't much of a bully because this guy got handled
yeah, he got handled by
most of
like
the movie.
the henchmen, off to the
Yeah,
side. They put the little bag over his head, man, roughed him up. By the end of the movie, man, he was done, man.
he was done.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I recommend this for anybody who wants just a lighthearted movie to watch. Again, we both gave it 4 rings. If you love Kid and Play, if you love House Party, it's worth giving it a try because I think that they did a really good job getting away from the characters, making you believe that this wasn't a house party movie. Again, they still played high school characters, which is a little crazy because they were probably mid-20s at this point. But
right.
yeah, definitely give it a shout, give it a watch. Hit us up in the chat, YouTube, wherever, and just let us know what you think about Class Act.